Okay, Kush. Yes. A lot of talent on the early session. Louis Carry On. Hey, Jackie. Whoo! Marcella Metcalf. Jesse Metcalf threw up a fire throwback today. Set the fucking internet on fire. That's a good photo, isn't it? We got a few more going. Oh my God. The early talent. Another second or two. Metcalf knows about that throwback. Okay. I think let's do this. Okay. So obviously what's on everybody's Cisco, what's up, baby? We got 10 minutes. I'm gonna do a cut. We're gonna talk for a few minutes and then you're gonna join. Okay, so real quick, what's on everybody's mind is reopening. We're headed towards it. Everyone's getting restless. We're about a month in now. We're about 5 to 6 weeks in. Nobody can really take it any longer, both mentally, emotionally. We know we're going to have to reopen soon. We know that there's still a lot of risks involved. So what are we going to do? We got to start looking at, one, which states are early to open, and what other territories, what other countries have already opened and are kind of setting a blueprint for what we may be looking at as we reopen. All right, so the first, yes, this goes. Dan, I'll get to Elon Musk in a little while, but yeah, so the state, one of the states that's a blueprint right now is Texas. Everyone wants to use Texas for their own agenda. Everyone wants to, anyone who's a proponent of California opening up early wants to look at Texas and say, oh, of course, Texas is a more freedom-loving state, got a Republican governor, and, look, they've decided to open up early. We need to follow their lead. However, if you actually look at the details of the plan for Texas's reopening, it's far from what you might imagine. It's a very measured reopening. Okay, for instance, business venues, retail venues will only be allowed up to 25% capacity. Restaurants only up to 25%. Gyms, salons, other businesses that are considered less than no gyms, no salons, no entertainment leisure venues. Those are not happening yet. And any business that does open up has to limit itself to 25% occupancy. Not that I'm a restaurant owner, but I've spoken with enough, and every restaurant owner that I talk to says 25% occupancy is lunacy. You can't make any money with 25% occupancy. Pretty much restaurants in Texas are just going to stay the way they are right now, partially open, doing roadside pickup, doing delivery, maybe hiring back a couple employees, but exactly, Jonathan, there's no chance. You're not making any money with 25% occupancy. But, I mean, listen, I guess it makes people feel better. It gives people some view of momentum that things are headed in the right direction. And from there, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if the spread rate, which is referred to as like based on how, we'll get to a little more information on the spread rate in a minute in regards to Germany because they're having some problems. But, maybe the data is going to tell us that what Texas is doing is giving a 2-week period where they're going to test the waters on this and see how the data turns out, see how the results turn out. And from there, they're going to decide in mid-May whether or not to go for a more full reopening. So beyond that, if you're playing outdoor sports in Texas, you're only allowed up to 4 people, obviously very limited. They are not enforcing mask wearing, but they're definitely encouraging people to wear masks. So we'll see how that translates to some other territories. Another place that is a little further along in reopening is South Korea. As we've talked about a bunch of times, South Korea, kind of the gold standard for monitoring COVID, for handling the situation. A lot of the Asian countries did very well because they, in response to SARS back in the early 2000s, they were prepared for this. Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, they had a rougher experience with SARS. So when this came around, yes, Dan, of course, shout out to South Korea. When COVID came around, these countries already had a plan in place, and they just went and stomped out COVID immediately. They implemented all the plans that all the countries had been building up. Their plans were more well developed. They had the resources, they had the personal protective equipment, and they implemented it hard and fast. But South Korea, no matter how well they've done, they still locked down hard for about 2 months. South Korean life, no matter how far in front of the situation they got, They still did 2 months of hard time, and so now they've reopened. And so now let's take a look at a couple photos to get an idea of what life is like in South Korea right now. Hold on one second. Okay, so South Korea's playbook for reopening. Those are the parks. Nobody near each other in the parks. Look at that, the subway. Everybody's wearing masks. Don't even think about not wearing masks, okay? One interesting thing about the Asian countries and a cultural difference is, listen, everybody's shallow, everybody's worried about looks, but in the Asian countries, in America, while it might be looked at as embarrassing or something to be ashamed of that you're wearing a mask, people are obviously very looks oriented and vain here. In the Asian countries, it's a matter of pride not to be wearing a mask. You look bad if you're not wearing one because it looks like you're not sacrificing for the greater good. And that's a difference that we're going to have to get around to, guys. We're going to have to get used to, not try. Maybe it'll be a relief for people. Maybe people are not going to care that they don't have to look their best every day. Maybe it's going to be a positive thing for society. But get used to wearing masks and to have that being part of your kind of physical persona. Now let's look at some more stuff here. Okay, if you are going to church, you've got medical professionals with masks ushering you into church, making sure that you act properly. Everybody's sitting far away from each other. Starbucks, you've got, and this is for retail. So what you're going to have is you're going to have social distancing design built into the retail experience. So if you go to a Starbucks, there's going to be cordoned off areas, like everybody has to stay in line more than 4 to 6 feet away. And that's something that's going on right now. You see it when you're standing in line at grocery stores, and that's the only place that we're experiencing it right now. But just be aware. This is going to start translating to many other parts of society, going to get coffee, any other retail experience. I mean, this is just what the future is going to look like. So that's South Korea, definitely something to watch. And they're a glimpse into the future. Another glimpse into the future that's a little concerning right now is Germany, because if you were lining it, the public narrative was the couple countries that were doing really well right off the bat were South Korea, Japan, and Germany. Germany, a really efficient, well-developed medical system. I talked about it on my last live. How their death rate is super low. If you look at the numbers across Europe and Western Europe, Italy, Spain, the United Kingdom, other Western European countries, all of which have a lot of infections, have death rates just an order of magnitude higher than what's in Germany. But Germany decided to open up a little on the early side. They're very efficient. They want to work. I think Cisco's getting a little antsy. So you know something? The Germans are going to have to wait. We're going to pop Cisco in here. So much for the Germans.
I was into it. I was not getting antsy. I want to hear all this. Keep going while I'm here.
Okay, I'll do a little more on this with you on screen, right? Okay.
Yeah, let me just interject when I feel necessary.
Exactly. Okay, great. It's a two-man show, man.
The Germans cannot wait.
Historically, they have not been a waiting culture, so we'll have to see how it goes. All right, what's going on in Germany? Germany went ahead and started a partial reopening a little bit on the early side because they believed that they were very well prepared. The measurement rate of so there's a measurement rate for COVID for any virus. How many people, if one person is infected, how many people does that person spread the virus to? Obviously, the higher that is, the worse it is. You've got some very, some viruses that spread but aren't very fatal, like chickenpox. Chickenpox has an R of something like 7 or 8, right? So that's pretty crazy.
I got it 3 times.
You did. You're excelling in every frame of life, including getting chickenpox.
I really did that.
I
really did.
Okay, so that's chickenpox. The flu's maybe like 3, but the flu most people recover from. With COVID, it's usually about 2.5 to 3. So every person who gets COVID without much social distancing or without many tactics, distancing tactics, spreads it to 2 to 3 other people. The goal is to get that below 1 so that each person who gets it does not necessarily spread it to another person. So that's one of the measurement points for reopening society, that if you can get that rate below 1. Germany got that rate to 0.7, so 0.7 of a point, that each person was only, did 30% of the people who had it were not spreading it to anyone. So they reopened a little bit, and within 2 weeks of reopening, it turns out that number jumped back above 1. So it started spreading at a higher rate again. So now Germany's a little concerned that they're going to have to shut down again. And so that's a concern here. A lot of people are really pushing for reopening right now and pushing aggressively. But guys, if we reopen and this thing starts spreading again, you know, and this is something I've talked to with a lot of restaurant owner and bar owner friends of mine, that if they can close down once and they may survive, if they close down once and this thing breaks out again and they have to close again, that's fatal, because then they're firing everybody. They can't handle two. So that's something that we have to be really careful of, and really, you know, in making the decision to reopen, be a little more careful, even if it's a little annoying, even if some of our buddies want to go and lay on the beach and go surfing and do this, you know, it can be done with responsibly, but you got to be a little careful, because if that kind of spread, if that data gets too high, I mean, we're going to be at risk of having to shut down again.
Where are you getting this data? Can I just ask that?
I am the fucking Sherlock Holmes, CSI, bloodhound of the internet information. It's just the truth. You know, I kind of realized that you have to be. It's the only way that a person can get a
Can we answer the question? Where are you getting the data?
I'm getting it from a variety of sources, a dozen sources all across the internet that are sourcing from other professional sources.
And then are you creating an average from all those sources?
I wouldn't say an average.
Or are they all the same?
No, I wouldn't say an average. I'm creating a perspective.
Okay, so you're extrapolating and then coming up with your own assumption.
I wouldn't say it's my own assumption, but I'm coming with my own perspective based on what
And listen, you're talking to a guy who hasn't seen another human in 52 days besides my wife and child. I'm a hypochondriac. I don't like going around too many humans in general. But I'm just curious as to, you know, you're a highly respected news source, and I want to know where you're getting this data from. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of data being thrown around. I want to know how one discerns it and knows, you know, the truth from the algorithmically served, politically charged data.
Absolutely. Well, I would say it's not politically charged. I say it's aggressive, yet not politically charged. The whole idea is that it's not politically charged.
Yours is not politically charged.
Mine is not politically charged.
Okay, but data in general that people are being served may be right now.
Absolutely. The problem is in the way one of the tactics in reading this stuff and analyzing it is thinking about the motives of whoever is dispensing it, right?
Agreed.
So just to give an example, right? To give an example, everyone wants to use Texas. Everyone who wants to push for opening wants to use Texas as their agenda for their agenda, right? Oh, Texas is opening up early, thus we should open up early, right? But then I'm looking at Texas and I'm like, all right, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, he obviously has a lot of incentives because he has a very freedom-loving, libertarian-minded electorate. He doesn't want to get voted out. So if he's being this careful,
they also don't have a lot of wide testing in Texas. My wife's from Texas. My mother-in-law is there. She's sketched out about it opening personally. You know, I mean, she's not hyped on it, you know, so.
And that's what I'm getting. You know, also I'm getting some direct. I'm trying to get as much direct data and observation as possible. For instance, Georgia also opened up early. I was seeing a couple articles. You know, nail salons in Georgia are getting flooded right now. So I was like, all right, let me see if I can get some you know, direct perspective and observations there. I messaged some. I just put out a post like, hey, if you're from Georgia and tell me what you're seeing, hit me up. And I had about half a dozen. Listen, they could be lying, but I had about a half a dozen people from Georgia and the surrounding Atlanta area tell me, you know, my sister owns a nail salon. It's not like that. She's got workers that are concerned to come back to work. They don't even want their job back because they're worried about their safety. They're, you know, a couple of the gyms are very crowded right now because people didn't work out and people got out of shape. So you've got a lot of pent up demand that's getting released.
Gym sounds like a nightmare right now.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And even with you're seeing in Texas and South Korea in particular, the gyms opening back up, they're disinfecting. Every gym is going to have 3 extra cleaning staff disinfecting the machines at all times, just every half hour. So
and do you think that is truly necessary?
I think we don't have enough information to know if it's truly necessary. Thus, we're doing a lot. And I think
thus err on the side of caution is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're getting at, is that a lot of these decisions have to be made on less than perfect data. Thus, we have to decide, do we overdo it and play it safe, or do we take the risk? And based on what we've seen, we have to look at. I always look at it in terms of symmetry. What's the risk? What's the reward? Is there what are we really sacrificing by not going hiking for a weekend? Yeah, it sucks, but for a weekend or 2 weekends, 3 weeks, right? What's the risk if this really is as bad and as contagious as it seems to be from some of the more hard-hit territories? And what are the consequences if that ends up becoming true? And that's concerning.
What about the data that it says, 40 to 50% in all states are nursing home victims?
That is absolutely, that's clearly data that suggests that this is far more deadly for elderly people. The problem is young people spread it even though they don't die.
So how about the jails? And listen, we're going to talk music, obviously. I just feel like this is good because I want to know these answers as well. And I feel like you've been diving in a lot. So the prisons, especially there's one in Santa Barbara and one in Ohio, almost 100% of the population have been infected in some of these prisons, right?
Yeah.
But 99% of them are asymptomatic.
From what I'm hearing, it's less than 99%. And this actually brings up a unfortunately tragic story that I was going to get to, but didn't get around to it in time. An individual, what's his name? I got the story right here. William Garrison. This is a guy, obviously did a terrible thing when he was 16. He was a minor. He was involved in an armed robbery that led to a murder. He was in jail for 44 years. He apparently got paroled. He got paroled about 6 months ago, but he didn't want to be on parole. He was like, something, I've done all this time. I've believed my.
He wants to keep going, he said?
He said that he did not want to leave jail until he was fully free.
Wow.
Guess what happened? Before he was going to be released, he was going to be released in about a month. He got COVID and he died. So not to use that story to suggest that a situation is worse in jail or that there's less. It's
an enclosed space and there's not a lot of great health care there. And they're definitely not going to do personal health care. It's going to be a group sort of therapy situation. But it's all very interesting. And we spoke about this earlier. I think no one knows shit. So I guess what you're saying is if no one knows shit, it's just very new, man. If no one knows shit, err on the side of caution is what you're saying.
I think we don't know shit. We know a little bit, and we know enough to see what the worst case scenario is and to see that it's not a completely unlikely one. Mm-hmm. That we need to be looking at all these decisions, just like Texas is looking at, all right, do we open back up? Do we open at 25%? Do we open up restaurants versus gyms? We have to be looking at all these decisions based on a balancing of interests, not based on these floaty air principles like freedom or safety. One side's going too far in the direction of just freedom is the guiding principle, and that's what should guide every decision. The other side's going too much in one direction of we can't let anybody die or anything happen to anyone, and it's obviously that's a tough position to take because you don't want to look like you're being cavalier about people's health. But just the fact is, some people are going to die, and this is going to end up being, we can't avoid it. So it has to be balanced between those two poles. Is what I'm.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
I don't know what to believe yet, to be quite honest.
Well, I think you do.
But I'm still not going outside, so I think we know where I'm erring on what side of caution.
For sure. But you have more. You know more than you would maybe admit to know, because you have incremental conclusions. You don't have your final conclusion. You have incremental conclusions.
Fair enough.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
They're statements. They're not even conclusions. Sometimes I'm saying things to then take the answer and add it to my incremental conclusion.
Listen, you're a rationalist, you're a skeptic, you're looking to break down stuff, as we talked about in terms of music. You're looking to dig into the anatomy of subject matter.
Segue of the year right there, my friend.
Listen, man, I didn't spin this thing up in 2.5 weeks and get it to here. Shit. All right.
Amazing.
Okay, so something, I'm going to segue into a little personal history that actually leads to a little Cisco White Star Malibu history, because it's too good and needs to be told. All right, so growing up in Los Angeles, I grew up a little bit inland, Beverly Hills, Jews. We don't really surf. We don't do too much time by the beach. So like, even though Malibu was just 15, 20 minutes away, we didn't really have much, Beverly Hills kids didn't have much interaction with Malibu kids. I mean, every once in a while I hear about Sean Stewart, like getting in some controversy out in Malibu, you know, much love to Sean. That is pretty much the extent of my high school and grade school experience and exposure to Malibu, was hearing about Sean Stewart getting in fights out there. Then kind of towards the end of college, I had a friend named John Caron. John Caron's brother, Michael Caron, was a guy who was a really up-and-coming music executive in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now he's not just an up-and-coming music executive, he's an up music executive. He was global head of A&R at Atlantic, and he's a beast in the music business. At that point, John tells me, like, hey, my brother signed this band he thinks is going to be huge. It's these guys out of Malibu, their dads are all, you know, well-known people in the music industry, and they just like, they've got this crazy society, and it's just like Malibu girls like all over the place, and it's crazy. You got to check it out. So I come back to LA from college. I graduate. I come back, and there's the band's called White Star. You were the front man, along one of two front men.
Two frontmen and a dancer. We were, you know, our lineup was very different than your normal band.
Innovators. It was a symphony. And I go to this White Star show, and I'm like, holy shit, dude, these guys are doing a whole Southern rock thing. They've got like two kind of, you know, two lead singers who are doing a Mick Jagger thing. They've got this slightly portly, yet, you know, clearly ironically dancing half naked guy on the side of the stage. This shit's crazy.
He's staying away from this live, I think.
Oh, are you kidding me, dude? He was in my DMs bitching about it all day. He was talking about all these. He's dying to get in on this live. Okay, you can see David. He probably has one burner phone. He's got his burner phone, and he's
Tony Potato is watching under a fucking troll account.
But he's watching under the Tony Potato account.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happened was this. It's not just a rock show. You guys had this kind of traveling carnival of rock and roll, of partying, of just this strong Malibu vibe of fucking peace, love, happiness, and fucking having a good time. And it just invaded West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. And like it for 2-3 years, it became this hybrid. And, you know, and
it was a party. It was a band. I like to say we're the biggest band that never made it.
Yeah. It's because it's like how I say Jay Lux is the most famous guy who's not famous. You guys are the biggest band that, yeah.
For real. Saying it's a strong parallel right there.
Oh, there's Tony Potato. He's like, I'm driving, you morons.
Are you driving in a poncho?
Yeah, in the poncho. If he doesn't have that poncho, I don't know. My estimation of Tony Potato may or may not be there. As Rick Williams so eloquently states.
So did you get laid at the White Star show or what?
Eventually. This was still the time when I was just like, had started to learn
how to use your penis.
Yeah. Like, this is what getting laid is. Oh, no, you know something? I'm not going to say getting laid because it could be watching.
I meant flowers. I meant a flower. Like, did you get a lay?
You know something? I went to visit your ancestral childhood home in Hawaii, and I got a lay, and we had a fucking hula, and it was amazing. Okay. So that was White Star. So why don't you tell us a little bit, give us your background. I mean, it's extensive in the music industry because it's from a long time, but tell us a little bit about White Star, about what you've done, did through the 2000s. White Star, what you're doing now, and a little bit of just your background in the music business.
That's a long list, but White Star was, I believe, a 7-year party. We all made it out alive for the most part, a couple casualties, and we're all still great friends. But after that, I was in a group called Swayze with a great friend of mine, Aaron, also from the Boo. He actually started sleeping on the couch. I had broken up with a girlfriend, and we needed a new batch of girls, and he was a little younger.
There we go.
And we make music in between. I think I was making the Mickey Avalon and Dirt Nasty stuff around that time. Whenever I didn't have time to do that, or when in the spare time, we would make records, and it just started kind of catching on like wildfire. And at that time, you burnt CDs and you handed it out to your friends, and they took it. And if it was dope, someone else burned it, and burn. And that's not much different from today, except they've made it a lot easier. But that shit took off. That was another crazy
Can
Fuck.
I interject with my how I'm Swayze story real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, because this is a good one. I meet this girl, you know, Montana Cody. She's from Malibu. She's like, hey, she's like, you know, whatever, let's hang out. And she's like, oh, by the way, my godfather's having a concert. Maybe you want to come. I'm like, who's your godfather? I'm at work. Okay, I'm at work. It's my first job ever. I've got this like.
Who is her godfather?
What's up?
Who is her god?
Get to that. So I'm in my office, and I share an office with a
Oh,
woman.
Rick Springfield? Is that her
Rick
godfather?
Springfield. She's like,
Yes.
my godfather's Rick Springfield. I'm literally like, she's like, hello, hello. I'm like, I'm staring catatonically at the fucking wall. I'm like, this cannot be real. We cannot be going to like your godfather's Rick Springfield, and we're going to his concert tonight. Apparently it was true. I like had to go downstairs and fucking like go nuts. I'm like, this is gonna be crazy. Okay, so then she tells me, it's like, oh yeah, you know, my friend Aaron from Malibu's coming. You know, Swayze. I'm like, what? I'm going to a fucking Rick Springfield concert with Swayze. Like, how is this happening? And so me, Montana, Swayze, and like two of her friends went to Rick Springfield. It was an epic night. I said, me and Swayze got along right off the bat. But the moment we bonded is we're in the audience, we're watching Rick Springfield do his thing. And I guess this was his move. He takes a dozen uncut roses and he plays a guitar chord with the bouquet of roses, and the rose petals just like fly up into the air.
The showman. He's a showman.
He's a showman. Me and Swayze just look at each other like, what the fuck just happened? We're like, that was.
I thought this story was going to be something different, but I like it. I like it,
Right.
and I like that it, you know, it plays into the fact that music is slightly devoid of showmen of that level nowadays, right? So that's interesting. Does this go deeper and darker at the end of the night, or no?
It could be, but I'm, you know, try to stay gentlemanly, and I think we'll stop right there, and I'll let you continue with your narrative and chronology of your career.
No, and then I've made a ton of records for a ton of awesome people. I'm a producer, singer, songwriter. I've scored films. I've run the gamut, you know, and after sort of the major label thing, I founded an independent label, had some great success with, you know, signing artists and developing them from 0 to 60. I really sort of pride myself on being a man of development. I really like finding diamonds in the rough, helping them get to the level that then they have the chance to jump from the top of the middle to the top of the top. And then, you know, I'm also an artist, a singer. I do whatever. I do whatever I feel feels good.
For sure. And one thing you're doing right now is taking a really unique approach to artist development with a collective that you have in Malibu called Cocoon. I believe it's Cocoon, right?
Cocoon, yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that I think you're really getting ahead of the curve on. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on with Cocoon, and then how that kind of was informed by your observations about how you develop artists in the current environment?
Yeah, I think development has been lost in the era of the viral hit, in the era of the Instagram clout culture. And I think a lot of acts may find themselves with a song that streams off the charts, and the labels will grab them. They'll squeeze the lemon for whatever they can. And that sort of act doesn't have the time to develop their talent, their show, their capabilities and their toolkit. And they end up, you know, sucking live. They end up not knowing how to tour, how to put a band together, how to sell merch, how to become an independent business, which I think you have to do nowadays. So the Cocoon is an incubator, an accelerator, where we provide free studios, free creative team. We have a space in Malibu that's a beautiful mansion overlooking the water that's filled with creative weirdos, and young artists are invited to come and commune, play, and develop in a community that I think is stronger in numbers. And it's sort of a plug and play scene for these artists to feed off each other, to be mentored by myself and other artists I bring around, and executives and whatever. And it's really exciting. I think it's something very special.
That's awesome. And I think interesting contrast that you mentioned that I think is a perspective that outsiders don't know about the music industry, is that one way that some artists are being developed and launched right now, you refer to it almost as Moneyball. that Spotify is taking an incredibly data-centric approach towards it, and
Yeah.
that's something that, while nobody's gonna criticize them for it, it is what it is, and it's relevant.
No, I think it's an incredible ecosystem, and I think they've. To me, it's about power. It's about power shifting to the artist. But when that happens, an artist sort of catches that lightning in a bottle. Now the labels, instead of grabbing artists pre that, developing them, helping them hone their talents, they're waiting for the lightning. They're bottling the lightning themselves. They're getting as much juice out of it as they can. And then we have what we have. Artists have a much shorter career than they possibly should. And listen, a slow grow is always better than a quick rise to the top, So I think if we can counteract that by creating a development sort of arm to the industry that doesn't exist, that is for artists by artists. I mean, it's not like I'm just a suit and tie telling them to come out here and play some music, and then I'm gonna tell them what I think I know. I've been through the whole fucking gamut. I've seen success. I've been through failures, and I think I can offer that to these young kids and still curate it. So it's not like I'm, not everyone is coming along for the ride. But if there's something special about you, you're welcome to come out, and you're welcome to use the services. And I think it's also very expensive for artists to create content in the amount of content you need to create nowadays in a 24-hour content cycle to make high quality music. Because listen, there's something great about music that's rough around the edges, and I've seen success with that too. But once you're at that level, you need to get better, and you need to get better, and you need to get better, or you're not going to become the top, right? So I just think it's a necessary thing, and it's something I love to do. So how can I help more of these kids do that was really my thinking.
For sure. And so you mentioned your failures, and you also mentioned that you were about as big a band as you could be without hitting. So in the music industry in particular, coming back from failure is tough, and transcending failure is tough. How do you think you did transcend those failures, and what lessons did you learn that you are passing down to some of these artists that you cultivate?
Well, I'll tell you what, I remember the exact moment that I was still in White Star, and Swayze and I were starting to take off, and I had to weigh the options. And I remember thinking to myself, White Star music had already been done. Classic rock and roll was already done, and done awesomely by legends, right? But when I looked over here, we were making something that was brand new. And I remember saying, this is going to be what kids in 20 years say they grew up on. You know what I mean? Rather than trying to refashion an old wheel. So I think originality is something that I look for in new artists. I never try to jump on a trend. I try to look for what's next. And so any artist I get involved with, it's usually what I think is going to be the next sound, not the sound of the moment. And a lot of labels jump on the sound of the moment because that's their business. And that's cool too, but that's not what I do.
For sure. And then, digging in further on how you guys kind of broke out with Swayze, because it's very evident of stuff that was really unique to the music industry during the 2000s, which was, and for some of the younger viewers right now, you've got to understand, Napster in the digitization of music was an incredibly disruptive event. Now it's commonplace, and all the pieces are in place. The architecture's there. But
Yeah.
from 1999 to maybe 2008, 2009, it was the story about how's the music industry going to survive was written 1,000 times. They published another goddamn story on this every week.
Yeah.
You guys,
it was exciting to me. It was, to me, I think if music is awesome, give it away for free, and more people want to listen to it, and you'll reap the benefits. I always felt like that. We were burning CDs like crazy. We were one of the first acts to break on MySpace, which was the first sort of digital streaming widget, if you think about it. And I just really saw that as the future immediately, and leaned into it rather than away from it. And so it's interesting because we were kind of one of the last sort of classes of artists to sell a ton of CDs, right? And everyone thought that this physical piece of plastic was really what everyone was caring about, but that's not what it is. It's culture. And if people want to subscribe to your culture, they're going to figure out ways to support you. And if you're great live, they're going to come see you live. And if you make awesome merchandise, they're going to buy your merchandise. And really what it comes down to is someone has to want to drive around in their car and play your song over and over and over and over again, right? So why wouldn't it be awesome that we get paid per listen, right? It used to be $11.99, you have my music forever. Or now, I mean, I have songs that just went platinum 10, 12 years later because people are still listening to them. And whenever they have that feeling, they can just pull it up and listen to it. And that's kind of, to me, more beneficial to the artists. And I think the propaganda of the industry was that streaming is bad because industry has to hedge its bets and try to hold off the fucking wave. But streaming has been wonderful. And for me, I don't even make physical CDs anymore, right? Maybe you'll make a piece of vinyl and maybe you'll design it amazing and maybe it'll be a sort of a keepsake that people can put on their wall or something like that. But for the most part, I'm in the business of getting music to the people's ears, however we got to get it to them.
Totally, totally. And as you mentioned, in terms of it being powerful enough for people to want to go ahead and, you know, hey, I found a parking spot or I got home, but I'm going to go cruise around the block one more time and listen to this track.
I did that. Like, so
yeah.
I know that feeling as a fan, you know, and I also, listen, I waited outside the Far Side show to smoke a joint with fucking Slim Kid Trey. Like I was a diehard fan of music. All I wanted to do on earth was be a rapper when I was a kid. And then Eminem
came
along.
that too with you and Asher, yeah.
And I was like, you know, Eminem kind of did this a little better. Hip hop kind of got boring for me at that point. And I think what we're seeing now is like a new birth of multi-genre blended music that really has no lines. There's really no such thing as genre. I think in a couple years, the genres will completely fade away. I think right now they just have to classify certain things so that the sheep can find them. But once everyone's smart enough to understand where to get what they like, we don't need to classify what is rock and what is hip. There can't only be 5 genres. You know what I mean? It makes no sense.
But here's one thing, and this is one of the downsides of the digital world, and it plays into something that, you know, is a pretty prevalent in the porn industry. Because in a digital world, everything gets meta tagged. That's why classifications have to be firm. And I'm not kidding. If we want to talk about it.
Yeah, but how about this? Why can't the classifications change? Why can't it be chill? And you see some of this now. Chill, hype, love, sad, happy. I think those are way better classifications for music, which is something that plays on your emotions and your feelings and your environment, than rock, hip hop, rap. You know, that's my take on that. I think we just have to change the terms. We don't have to stop classifying or applying metadata. We have to make sure that the metadata evolves with the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's something that there's no reason it shouldn't happen, but it is really fascinating how content, whether it be porn or movies or music, because of the nature of the internet and the architecture. And
well, here's the deal with porn, right? So we have the rise of OnlyFans right now.
Yeah.
Right. So we had this conversation too. If you think this guy just jumps off the cuff here, he preps himself. He watches a lot of porn, but he also preps himself on the news. And and so I think it's the power shift. And I talked to my brother Manny works in music partnerships at Snap, which is an amazing perspective on music as well, because of how many kids are using Snap and how many older people do not, right? So the power has shifted to the artist. In the NBA, the power has shifted to the player. In the porn industry, the power has shifted to the naked person who is selling their body. Why do I need someone else? Obviously, I feel like Jenna Jameson might have been the first person to have her own porn company and make her own videos, right? She was early.
Took it to another level.
Okay, so now we have the OnlyFans, and obviously I've never even seen an OnlyFans, but now rappers are doing it, and rappers are showing pictures of their dicks to their biggest fans if they pay enough. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, that sounds crazy, but maybe that's just futurist.
Yeah.
Why do I need a middleman for my dick?
many
or my
existential questions
vagina,
being
right?
raised
I
right now.
don't. Why do I need someone to do that?
Yeah.
And in music as well, I don't need that. What I do need is once I get to a certain level, someone's got to write $1 million, $2 million check to be able to hit a global fucking takeover, you know, mass marketing plan to get to the level of the, you know, the Post Malones and the Drakes, right? But the other thing is, and this is pretty relevant right now, is the pandemic has created a situation where you can't go into the studio with a bunch of people. You can't shoot a video with a crew of 20 or 30. You have to do DIY videos again. And some people, Drake understood that. He's like, I got a big mansion. I got a video camera. I'm just going to do a video in my mansion and people are going to be fucking hyped about it, right?
Yeah.
And the people who can jump that gap that way and realize that that might be gone for a while now. Obviously, we've seen the ebb and flow of big budget videos. We had the Puff Daddy era, and then after that, it went to straight DIY, and then kind of got back. I think we're in the era of do it your fucking self, but do it well. And if you do it well, you will be able to get the level of success that anyone did before. So
for sure. And then obviously Drake has found a formula that works for him, and that formula has evolved in many ways, shapes, and forms.
Listen, a lot of people hate on Drake. I can't hate on Drake. Drake has more fucking hits than the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like, Drake is these kids' Beatles, right? And I think as we get old, we want to hate on the young. We want to hate on what's new because it's different and it's fucking weird to us and they don't do it like we did. Well, that's the quickest way to find yourself in the bleachers and not on the bench as a coach.
Well, let me ask you that, and because you are a generational member of the music industry, right? And you know your father. I mean, just as something that everyone will know, and the mamas and the papas, California dreams, that Lou Adler, fingertips all over it. So you as you were finding your own voice and your own taste in the music industry, you know, you had these influences, right? You know, in your life constantly. What was your relationship to earlier music? And you know, and some of your father's acts and what you grew up being exposed to as you were forming your own voice?
I mean, I grew up around it all. It wasn't anything weird to me. I think probably in my teens, I started to realize certain shit like that. But I remember playing the Ghetto Boys for my dad, and he was like, "This is not music." And then I also remember, like 10 years later or 5 years later, him coming back to me and being like, "You know what? I was wrong." Right? And so that was an awesome moment because I was like, the Ghetto Boys were my punk rock. The Ghetto Boys were my rock and roll that the generation before played for their parents, and their parents were like, this isn't fucking music, right? So I think you have to just get over that shit and realize that that's like a chip on your shoulder. That's not reality. But if anything, some people in my position there's two roads you can go. You can become a complete dipshit, or you can be completely inspired and realize that, like, I see greatness and I want to be great, right? Mm-hmm. So I definitely never had the, like, yeah, there's some big shoes to fill, but I can't wait to fucking stand in them, was my whole thing. You know what I mean?
No, that's super interesting perspective. And in terms of the shoes that you filled, and one point that you made to me is that some of this is about either stepping into a cultural moment or creating that cultural moment. And, you know, it's something that you guys did. It was very identifiable what you did with Mickey Avalon and Dirt Nasty, and what you're doing, like a very particular, you know, irony, self-aware, comedic, but lyrically really sophisticated, and had this kind of Malibu, LA party vibe. Like, that was something that was very distinct beyond even what the music was. Now,
yeah, I sort of found myself in a rock band with all this hip hop knowledge and all these hip hop tools, and Mickey opened up for us one night, and I saw him, and I was like, dude, this is it. I can fucking help this guy. Like, this is what all my toolkit has been sitting here with the dust on it. I need to dust it off and go, because this is a hybrid. This is a real rock star who's rapping. You know what I mean? And it was also, you know, it's funny because nowadays you can't really shock anyone. Then you could shock people, you know? Talking about your dick and talking about snorting lines off the back of a Bolivian fucking Bermuda fucking, you know what I mean? Like, that was shocking. Nowadays, that's not shocking. And I think you have to find other ways to shock. So again, that's another change. But yeah, I just try to look for culture. I try to look for what makes my hair stand up on my arms, and I just get a twitch. And if I get the twitch, I go for it.
For sure, for sure. And that's a cultural moment that you guys really embodied and stepped in, whether stepping into or creating. And someone that we discussed who's doing that right now is Billie Eilish. And it's someone who is clearly representative and influential on the culture of the youth right now.
For the kids. And listen, a lot of engineers and a lot of mixers and a lot of people were like, fuck it, how can she win a Grammy? They made that record on a laptop. But really, I think that's exactly the point, is that you should be making the records on your laptop, and they can be made and they can be big. And that is not a reason to take away from someone. That should let you know that they might be even 10 times more genius than you. They didn't have to spend $1 million. They just fucking had it up here and got it out right here.
For sure, for sure. And an interesting point that a perspective that you had is that a lot of times, in particularly with female artists, their sex sells. There's clearly phases and something cyclical in terms of young female artists sexualizing themselves and showing their ass, for better for worse. Billie Eilish, in one way, kind of cut against the grain on that and went the opposite direction, but then popped out the other side, a bit of a sex symbol. And that's super.
Yeah, I mean, she decided that intelligence was sexy, talent was sexy, and I think that's always been the truth. But a pair of boobs and ass can stop a car, right? So why not decide not to sell that aspect and, in fact, cover yourself up completely? And through that, she's become a fashion icon, where fashion was probably driven by Victoria's Secret-esque boobs and ass before, right? But now it's not about that. And sneaker culture, she's kind of a sneaker culture queen. She's probably the face of numerous high fashion houses at this point. And I think it was an interesting move. And to me, it's not anything more than a sign of the times, right? And I think that's how you figure out what culture is. You know, our president is a sign of the times. He's a symptom of the problem. He's not necessarily the root. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And however you feel about that. And I think culture is what culture is. You don't get to choose what it is. The kids choose. You know what I mean? Listen to the youth. In fact, we should probably have a young president. We should probably have a youth voice that actually can break through the fucking old white male that really doesn't know shit at this point.
Well, here's the thing. Now, it's not just the white males who are old. All the females who are in the power structure are old. Everyone's everyone. That was easy. Even with Elizabeth Warren involved, it was something like the 4 candidates left for the Democratic nominee were none of them had. They were all born before 1950, and then you got Donald Trump, who's 74, and it brings up a lot of crazy fucking moral issues about, okay, because of the healthcare system, people are living longer. The electorate and the American population now skews older. Who are they going to choose? And here's a really interesting thing.
And kids still don't vote as much as they should. They just don't.
And that has not changed this year.
But you know why? Because we should vote on our phones.
You want to start getting into more existential about what this COVID situation is doing in terms of busting down prior power structures and accelerating trends that should have been accelerated previously, as we can get into that. This is cutting across dozens of categories of society. And one of them, because how the fuck is everyone going to get to a poll even in November?
Well, that's what they want.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
And they also want someone to roll in on their big white horse and save the day right before the election, right? So there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of the polling issue. Listen, if everyone wanted, I can poll on my fucking IG and get a fucking more realistic take on my question. You know what I mean? So like, what are we doing nowadays? We're kind of I think what we're doing is we have one foot on each side of the gap right now, and the old white male, old white female, old heads are holding on to the last thread of anything. I think that's music, that's entertainment, that's politics, that's porn, that's whatever it is.
And it's very true. And it's very true. And then as we segue into, a little bit of what's going on with music that is specific to this COVID situation.
Someone said I can hack your poll on IG. Yes, you can. You can. You know what I mean? But someone can build encryption software that can make it so you cannot. You know what I mean? So
for sure,
it may take a couple tries.
Well, let me, after tonight, I'm going to stay up till 2 a.m. thinking about how I can use hacking IG posts to my advantage, because it's not coming to me off the top of my head, but that's another conversation. All right. And as we were saying, this situation, what it's done is by removing all the structures that we normally relied on day to day, industry wise, whatnot, it's accelerated some of the trends that
Well, here's what happened. Spotify just came out today. They said that I believe this quarter will be exactly on par with last quarter. So streaming music has not taken a massive hit. Obviously, live music is taking the biggest hit it's ever seen in the history of live music. As a venue owner as well, I don't try to guess when it's going to come back or what it's going to be like. I think it's just wait and see, because I don't want to put 600 people at risk. You know what I mean? I think we're going to have to put a bunch of sort of barriers of entry, at whether it be temperature checks or fucking the immunity passports, all that bullshit. Maybe that's going to play into whether you go to a live sort of show or not. But I think really the crowd will determine that, and it's not going to be my choice. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of this, I know Jason was on the other night talking about hotels and how they have to shift. I think you can guess that maybe room service will go, maybe the front of house concierge will go. And believe me, he knows more than any of us on this subject. But I think the customer is going to determine how they feel and when they feel comfortable and what they feel comfortable with. So I just don't think it's us as the institutions, as we're talking about. It's not the institution's choice.
Yeah.
So does that maybe play into, is it the government's choice to open us up or not? Or is it the people's choice to stay home or go out?
That's a super interesting question, and from a number of different angles. And, and that's where I'm at, is that I think that, once again, you're trying to analyze what the benefits are versus what the risks are. And the reason that I'm more cautious about some of this stuff is that I think people are overestimating the benefits of opening up.
Nah, but you're a well-off dude who can stay home. Listen, I could stay home forever. I make music mostly by myself. Once the artist leaves, I spend 80% of the time the music is made by myself. I also live on the recorded side of music. I'm slightly doing fine in this sort of situation, right?
Same here.
I should not be the one speaking on it. If I am a person who runs a small mom and pop, and you're telling me that I am going to have my livelihood, something I've built over the past however many years, completely decimated, we're just talking a different conversation.
But here's what I'm going to say, that we're not talking a different conversation. Because and it goes back to
what you're saying. If they open up, people may not come to it anyway. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. But leave that up to them. And I'm not saying that's my answer. I'm saying that's an answer.
That is an answer, but I think that if you don't take that a couple steps further, and
Nick, hold on. Nick asked me when I want to ball with them. First of all, I don't think you want to ball with me. I know there is one historical moment you and Frankie might have taken a W over here or something like that.
Now we're getting the good shit.
But I'm already a hypochondriac psychopath. Like, I locked down late January as far as like not sharing a do. First of all, I have my own bong when I smoke weed. I don't like to share saliva anyway. I don't love shaking hands. I don't love, and I think it comes from years of touring and meet and greets where, like, I hugged a lot of sweaty people who had the flu and the cough, and I came home sick. I'm really like halfway to Howard Hughes over here. So I think society should benefit potentially. And we see in Asian countries, they wear the masks. They're a little more considerate of that shit. They bow. Like, we don't need to share saliva, spit, sweat, breath, all that stuff, in my opinion. So I won't be playing basketball with you for a while, but you know, that might be just me.
Listen, we're gonna have to make some sacrifices. We're not, you know, Danny Chamison of the Gold Coast All Stars earlier today hits me up in DM. He's like,
love Danny.
He's like, bro, Cisco and Swayze, they weren't just me. They can fucking play ball. Right?
Danny can ball too.
He can, and Danny can play the fucking piano. Can he not?
Oh, he's a beast. He's a beast.
He's amazing. He's amazing. He's he was a friend. He was a friend of mine. He was in LA for a little while. I think he went back to Chicago, but just a super talented. I was friends with his wife, and I went to one of his shows, and like the way that he threw himself, I've never seen anyone play the piano with that much.
Brilliant.
He's amazing.
He's brilliant. Great songwriter too. I mean, I know all those people from Chicago too. White Star used to shack up in various people in Chicago's apartments that also knew Danny. That's how I knew Danny. But I will say this, Coachella, right? Mega festivals. Now, we had a discussion. You prefer the after party to the festival anyway, right?
No,
and in another discussion I had today with someone, they would call you a passive, all right? You're not there for the music. You're not there.
That's not necessarily true. I said, no, do you want to, okay, now you've obligated me to listen to my entire explanation now.
I want to.
Yeah, because there's no fake news. It's only real news.
I want to.
Okay. What I was saying is that the after parties at Coachella have gone up into the amount of money and production value is astonishing. You're having parties at some houses that are super impressive. Everyone's got the vibe. Everyone's, you know, got.
I just want you to know, as you say this out loud, you're going to feel slightly ridiculous.
Come on. You don't think I've gotten past that in 20 different categories, bro? Come on. Who are you talking to here?
Listen, a big house, cocaine, and girls. Like, come on. You don't need someone to spend a bunch of millions of dollars and brand it out for you to get.
Not everyone was a fucking rock star, Cisco.
No, but you can find that very easily on a Tuesday night in Hollywood.
Because you cannot in 2020, okay? This isn't 2006. It was High Times, rock and roll, Malibu. That was at your fingers. It's not it, and it's not.
You're right. I'm tapped out. I'm married with a child. The last thing I want to do is go to an after party. You know, I really don't. I stopped going to Coachella even the last couple of years just so I could get re-excited about it because it felt like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride to me. Because I have to go to the show, I have to try to get to this, then I have to go to the carnival, then I have to go to this, and guess what? None of it's really that fun. But I guess if you're trying to get laid, it becomes you have to go to the plains of the Serengeti.
I don't just say that it's just getting laid. It's being there with an incredible amount of energy with friends of yours that have a lot of energy as well, and everyone's tapped into the same thing. And
okay, so you're there because of the group communion.
That too, and the music. But here's the thing:
who was your favorite band last year?
That's 2019 was a terrible music year. 2018 was a good music year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who?
At Coachella.
Who?
Huh? What, you're just going to shit on anyone I say.
No, I don't shit on anyone's musical taste, and I love all music.
Okay,
what I'm trying to say is it's a ride. It's as much of a ride as the carnival at the Neon Carnival.
That's fine. What's wrong with that?
Nothing at all. Just call it what it is.
All right, but like you want to get into weekend one versus weekend two because we can do that, and we're going.
I love weekend two more.
No, but that's what I'm saying, bro. You're not letting me give the full answer, and I'm going to give it. And we're down to 1 minute on this 1 hour, and we are definitely firing this motherfucker back. We're gonna get through a second hour. This is like not even half over.
I've learned. Don't go into the second hour.
You're kidding me. Do you want to get? We're going at least 10 minutes into the second hour. We're tapping out in about 30 seconds. We're gonna fire it back up, and we're gonna go 10, 15.
Okay, we can do it. We'll talk some gossip in the second hour.
This is where. We got some Malibu royalty. Taylor Gardner, one of my first true Malibu, like people who introduced me to Malibu. So it's on behalf of Malibu. We're gonna go into the second hour. I'm gonna stop this right now. I'll fire it back up and join back in.
I'm going to bed because I don't go to the Neon Carnival. Peace.
Stop it. No, you got 15. We're going into the parking lot. We won't go to the after party. We're going to the parking lot. Cisco thought he was getting away on that second.
Here's the only reason we're going into the second hour, right? Here's the only reason, because I think every great news show has the post online sort of piece to their situation, right? So, you know what I mean? But look at, talk about giving the power to the user. You're now an example of that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
You may become some people's news show of choice. In fact, you're my wife's, which is how I walk in one day and fucking my wife is watching this guy. I'm like, who is that? I know that motherfucker. What the fuck? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I love it. I love it. Okay,
Barbara,
we're back.
Barbara, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I think we met one time maybe for in passing at Soho, Malibu. I was maybe one of our David Shane interactions.
Can we talk about our Soho Malibu credits or what?
What the fuck?
What is that bullshit?
Dude, fucking talk. Hey, Sam Stone.
Like I want a box. Like I want a fucking box from the fucking online shop right now.
It's fuckery, man. It's I don't want to criticize the fine people at Soho. They've provided so many great experiences to me.
No, I love them. They're my family. They're my family.
Like, Sam,
but I can also criticize my family.
That's true. That's true. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can't criticize your family, who can you criticize? But I'm looking. Listen, we'll get me and Barbara. You guys are gonna roll in with the baby. Like that's what happens when us Soho people go like, oh my God, we're gonna go and see a bunch.
See, I only go. See here again. I try to only go Tuesday through Thursday when you motherfuckers aren't there. Like I was there when they opened that shit. It was just me and Babs and Ace, and it was the greatest place on earth. You know what I mean? I don't want it to turn into fucking, you know, the neon fucking carnival.
No, then like a Spencer Gilbert will roll in with like a little bit of an.
Oh, I love him.
Like,
I love him. He's
Spencer,
allowed.
like,
He's allowed.
Where'd you grab these for artist motherfuckers? Like bringing them in from downtown to hang out, you know? But whatever. We're inclusive in Malibu. Everyone's good vibes. It all settles into a.
I kid.
We're kidders. That's what we do here. We kid well.
Yeah, I kid.
What you were saying about not to turn the conversation back to me, but to turn the conversation back to
Please do.
Yeah, that is something where you essentially you have these power structures, you have these institutions that are completely outdated. I'm just gonna go in. I think they're fucking corrupt. I think they lie to people. I think they don't just lie to people as by accident. I don't think they lie to.
So you're talking about the marketing companies that throw the parties at Coachella, right?
No, those are the most wonderful people on earth. They have nothing but the best intentions. They've provided so much to me in my life. But maybe
listen. It's kind of like idiocracy. We're living in it, okay? And you know, let's be real. President Taco Bell is what we have right now. You know what I mean? And I think that what happened is when a party becomes a brand activation, and it's not even done in a slightly sort of subtle way, I think you cross over the line into that.
Fair enough, and you're not wrong. What I'm saying is that someone like you, who is a musician, and this is what you live, sleep, and breathe, right? And you're going to be more of a purist in that regard, which is fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. Some of us who love music, who appreciate music, who yes, go to Coachella weekend too, specifically because okay, I can stretch my fucking arms out now and breathe, and feel the music, and listen to the music, and let it get up into our soul.
I agree. Okay. Listen, I just sort of feel like everything has a moment and then it gets exploited.
Yeah, but that's invariably about just about anything, man. That's a tale as old as time.
Agreed. So tap out before the fucking exploitation.
Cisco, as the last half of our conversation was last night, as I'm telling you, I'd like to, but there are obviously a few things inhibiting it. But whatever, we can get into my riot DMs another time.
No, listen, it is. So what's here? Someone says this. So socialize around beautiful people and listen to music. Great. Yes, you're right. I've done that my whole life. I don't have to pay to do that. But
nobody's asking you to, motherfucker.
No. I do believe that it's a cultural generational moment, and I love cultural generational moments. And I think, there is a beauty to it. And again, I'm not slandering it in any way. I'm saying for me personally, it became, there was train tracks on my trip there, and I did the same thing every time. And I don't like anything that's the same thing every time. So I just think moments like this shift culture. So whatever's going to come after this, and listen, I don't think mega festivals are going to happen this year. I can't see that they would, but who knows? We could be wrong, and people could just not, they could not wait to go out and fucking party and do that. But if so, there might be something next year that is a rebirth and a new sort of cultural moment that is different than the last however long. And
Sure.
that might be the best thing that has ever happened to culture. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt. And as we, you know, as we take the conversation from music, which is something that is so fundamental and primitive, you know, to the human experience, but then kind of extrapolate from that. Matt Moscow, you are becoming the fake news network tonight. Commented Matt Polinsky doesn't even party. Anyways.
No, see, let's get back. Let's go to drugs, because we talked about drugs a little bit.
We did talk about drugs, yeah.
And there's the drug aspect to all of that, right? Which I know we're talking about. And I know a lot of people think I did a lot of drugs. I haven't done that many drugs. I'm definitely not a coke guy. So I'm already on coke. My fucking energy is coke. You know what I mean? Like, I came out of the womb hyped up. I need to smoke weed from 6 a.m. to fucking midnight to try to calm down.
You got the music flowing through your fucking veins, the electricity flowing through your veins all day long. What the fuck do you need cocaine for? Some outdated 80s bullshit.
Well, cocaine is just not a great drug.
It's not. It's not.
Like, in my experience, like, I like drugs that make me fucking trip out and think about life and question fucking reality for 6 hours.
Without a doubt.
And that doesn't do that, right? That makes you talk to your boy and plan a bunch of shit you're not going to fucking do. You know?
It is a productivity
drug. And if you remember, I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day at my parties, around like 1 a.m., I would just roll out, turn the music off, shut the lights off, and everyone would go to the real coke party. There was like a second stage rocket, because I didn't do that shit. I was there for a different reason. We know why, but I feel like and you said mushrooms are definitely more prevalent right now. I saw mushrooms on the timeline 6 times today. And that's because people are searching for answers, right? And cocaine is not a searching for answers drug.
No, correct.
It's a searching for, it's a search to fit in.
It's a keeping your self-esteem high drug.
Okay, yes.
Let's just call it what it fucking is. And I think that, you know, I try to look at this from a historical perspective, because I'm a fucking history nerd.
Mm-hmm. And a cokehead.
Right?
No,
right. Listen, man, you know, child of the 80s, I love I was like all the cool, glamorous motherfuckers in the 80s.
But I also feel like, listen, I've done coke maybe 10 times, maybe 1 or 2 more. But I've also once or twice done really good cocaine. And that's definitely not what you all are doing.
You're doing stomped on baby powder fucking bullshit.
Yes. So again, listen, we can't do the photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. Can't do that in music. Can't do that in fucking culture. You can't do that in anything.
Yeah. So
everything is everything. We're talking about everything.
You're feeling very Stairway to Heaven right now.
No, I have a very holistic, sort of zoomed out, universal look at life and the world. And I feel like anytime we're on the 3rd or 4th photocopy of anything, it sucks. Take that for what you want to take it as.
Yeah, it is.
We got Lorena in here. Lolo.
Yeah, an undercover Malibu legend, Lorena.
Yes.
Lorena's a serious fucking
She's like, what are you talking about? I do branded events.
Well, we're getting some hate in the comments for like not being high, like shitting on cocaine a little bit. Listen, we'll see what happens.
Listen, to each his own. To each his or her own. If you're hating on me for shitting on cocaine, I am not the problem. You know what I mean? Like, because what the fuck? And by the way, I'm not shitting on it. I'm saying for me personally, it's not my favorite drug.
Well, no, we're trying to analyze. Me and you were trying to analyze how does societal trends and drugs play into each other, and
how do they go like this, right?
Right.
So, and what we're saying is we've seen a lot of mushrooms recently. That's because in a time like the pandemic, people are going to search for true meaning and answers. They're not necessarily just going to try to stay up all night and keep their self-esteem up, right? I think drugs go hand in hand with a cultural moment.
Well, here's the other thing, and this is something that we've been other stuff that we've been talking about in terms of experiences where lots of people are around each other. If people aren't in big crowds that have a ton of energy and vibe like that, how's that going to affect drugs? How are drugs going to affect that? Are people going to,
Don't we need some new drugs?
Honestly, yeah.
How come drugs haven't been disrupted?
They kind of have over the last few years. The psychedelics have kind of taken off. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, but there's the ayahuasca, which is that's not a disruption. That's back to the root.
But it's a disruption of what society was for 50 years. Okay.
No, and look, someone said ayahuasca. I fuck with that because anything that makes you throw up and purge and get to the root of all your issues you've ever had your whole life and come out better on the other side, that's fine by me.
For sure. Okay, so you want to, and this is something that is not just a theory of mine, it's of some very smart people that I follow. There's a certain segment of society, because of the digital domain and the digital world, that have been able to acquire a unique level of wealth with a uniquely low level of effort, right? The people who have acquired wealth via the digital world have in some respects done it quicker, leaner, more efficiently than anybody else. And it has opened them up to be able to spend more time doing drugs, doing ayahuasca, these transcendent experiences. That's why ayahuasca, mushrooms, and psychedelics are so big in Silicon Valley and amongst the tech world. Okay.
No, I think it's also because those people weren't the people that partied their way through high school and college. They were the people that studied and worked their way through high school and college. And so on the other side of it, it's time to party now.
But that's one piece of it. But in another era, they would have done cocaine like doctors and lawyers did in the 80s.
Fair enough. No, I like that. I like that sort of take on things, and I think it's very interesting. And hopefully, the effect of that will be some of the greatest minds of our time will do these things and create further breakthroughs.
Well, look, I posted, I don't know if you saw it, about a month ago, not a month ago, 2-3 weeks ago. Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter. Jack Dorsey's got billions of dollars. Like, he's not known. Jack Dorsey's he's known as an out there ayahuasca. I'm going to move to Nigeria for 2 years, kind of a spiritual guy. But he's not well respected as a CEO, even though he's rich, because people don't think he's done a very good job in building Twitter. They just think he lucked into it, that he fell into something that worked and it went to a $10 billion company. He went ahead and donated $1 billion of his personal fortune to this situation.
Yeah.
Right? In the past, you had not seen wealthy individuals donate quite that much money to disaster relief. So you can look at it and say, you know something, this particular way of these guys like Jack Dorsey, who are not cool and not social guys.
Well, he also made his money and he's still young.
That too. Yes, that's part of it.
So he still gives a fuck.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Because before tech, you didn't have as many young people that had this much wealth.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I mean, listen, one thing we cannot deny is a lot of people are going to make a lot of fucking money off this thing.
Absolutely.
Buy when there's blood in the streets. Anyone who's liquid and understands the fucking buy low fucking is going to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? And so that's where you got to think about who's pulling the puppet strings.
1,000%. What have you, and now we didn't talk about this in the first hour, but some of the new shit that has popped out of the Corona experience in the music industry. Virtual concerts, Travis Scott with a Fortnite integration. Listen,
I think he is one of the artists that can do it well. I think we've seen a lot of people in their pajamas play songs and it not sound that well, and there's going to be fatigue. And one thing we're doing at Cocoon is making sure that we are a digital venue with great sound, and you can come and play and sound awesome. And I think there will be a market for that even as live music returns, because you have a room with an unlimited cap, right? If you can get 100,000 people in a room to watch your concert and they pay $1, you're gonna do possibly better than if you go play 1,000 cap room and they pay 10 to 15.
Absolutely, and that's another.
And you don't
yeah.
pay for a bus, you don't pay for this, that, and the other thing. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I think what you're identifying right now is something that a lot of people in the Zoom world, that work from home world, are identifying, that video conferencing and all these companies that are now have all their employees working from home and just tapping in via video.
They're actually kind of working out well.
Oh, very well, extremely
Yes.
well. But you know what they're saying is that this is like, remember Prodigy? It was one of the first internet, right? They're saying this is the Prodigy era of video conferencing and working from home. That this is going to get so much more elaborate, sophisticated.
Oh, Zoom is the new Facebook, no doubt. Okay. Once Zoom figures out the lag, adds a suite of services that can actually be good. Listen, as a songwriter, I've been doing Zoom songwriting sessions. They kind of fucking are a little weird, and they're not awesome yet. You know what I mean? So the minute that can be figured out, fuck yeah, I'd love to write with someone in Argentina. I'd love to write with someone in Sweden without having to go there. That'd be amazing. I think they have to figure out the kinks, but it's early, and it fell into their lap. So yeah, I think we're on the dawn of a new way to work. I don't think everyone needs to go to the fucking office every day, every week. I think if we don't do that, we'll get a lot of cars off the road. I think if you listen in the morning, you hear a lot more birds singing. If you look up at Venus, it's brighter. You can see all the stars in Los Angeles. There are benefits to us disgusting humans staying home, right? And so if we can come out of this alleviating the negative, accentuating the positive, it might be the dawn of the age of Aquarius. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my last comment. BNN, you're the fucking best. I love you.
Cisco, I love you, brother. See, I said 10 minutes, it was 18. Thank you so much. This was we could go another
We ran
4
the
hours.
gamut. We ran the gamut. You
have children in Malibu, things to go turn your attention to.
Hopefully he's sleeping, but that just means I get to make some more music, put it up on a digital platform, get it to 1 million people so they can drive around in their car and bump it, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
And we'll get to the you versus Nick Montalegre and Frankie Delgado basketball game another time.
You know what? I bring it on. Bring it on. Wear a mask and some gloves, and I'll fucking dunk on y'all. All right, peace.
Love you, bro.
You too.
Love that guy, man. Every time I talk with Cisco, it's fucking 3.5 hours. Talk about a bunch of other shit. Taylor, thank you so much. I think we did justice to what the Malibu 2000s brought to society. Let's see if anyone's got any interesting questions. Maybe we'll hang out for another minute or two and talk some shop. All right, fuck it. Let's hang out. Let's see who else wants to pop on in. Could be someone naked. You never know.
Matt,
What's
what
going
up?
on, bro?
Long time no see.
It's been a minute or two. How are you, man?
Yeah, it's good, man. I gotta tell you, been enjoying all the things you're putting out, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We gotta get you on prime time.
Well, man, it's a long and winding road, but hopefully we'll accelerate it a little bit.
Yes. No, love your coronavirus, stuff. I'm here in Long Island right now, a little late night.
I love it. I love it. What's going on in Long Island right now? Give us the dispatch from Long Island.
Well, so I'll catch your, the 37 people up on here. Last I saw you was in the Londonderry days, back probably in 09. No, excuse me, 2012.
Yeah.
Now, got 2 kids, doing the regular grind. No, it's good. We're all staying inside.
Very cool. In North Shore or South Shore, Long Island?
So I'm in Nassau, which, from what I've seen, if it was a state, would have the fourth largest coronavirus, you know, of it.
All right. So give us a little insight here, because everyone, when we see the number, when we're all of us who aren't in New York, when we see the numbers of how crazy it is in New York, when we think about Manhattan, Manhattan makes sense. But then we hear about Long Island being having such high numbers. How the fuck has there been any explanation to why Long Island, that is suburban? Obviously, a lot of people work in the city. Why are the infections so high in Long Island?
So a lot of people that work in Long Island or that live in Long Island, either them or their spouses, work in the city. Like about a week before, like, you know, like our office issued the shutdown, I had somebody walking around the office going, their spouse lives in the city, don't go near them. Yeah. Like, you know, we're all intermingled. So if you're not exposed to it, you are in one way or the other, whether you, like, you know, your spouse rode the Long Island Railroad, or like, you know, you were directly involved with it, you were theoretically exposed. Meanwhile, I just got an antibody test where I was convinced that I had it in late February. And according to this, you know, this test, I haven't been exposed at all. And that was a super big bummer.
Yeah. There's a lot of diversion takes there. It's a lot of controversy between people who think they have it. They are adamant. My thing is, people like a good story. Not that you were necessarily thinking that, trying to get attention or anything, but a lot of people. I had the coronavirus in February, and it was before people realized it. That's a good story. I just got sick in February. That's not as interesting a story.
I got super sick in February. Back in November, I had pneumonia. I had pneumonia for 5 weeks, kicked my ass, and then in February, early February, and I deal with a lot of people from that in my business that work in China. I felt like, you know, sick for like a week, and then my wife got super sick, and she said to me, "Hey, I can't even walk up the stairs." Didn't really believe her. Was kind of an asshole about it. Then 3 days later, I was in bed for 2 days, couldn't even move, and then subsided. And then a week later, I still felt sick for a week. So when all of this came out saying, hey, this is, you know, these are the symptoms, we looked at each other and said, hey, we think we had it. But yeah, we did a test, which after I took the test, I went and looked online, kind of shady. Still paid $80 for each one of us. Said we didn't have anything.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, everyone's trying to figure it out, man. You guys are more of a guinea pig out there. Luckily, here in the suburbs, you got a little space to breathe. I mean, are people reaching their breaking point where they just can't stay fucking inside any longer?
Yeah, well, so we, like, you know, just amongst friends, like, you know, we're for about, like, you know, up until 2 weeks ago, we didn't see anybody. Now we're doing where friends will come into our backyard. Again, we're in the suburbs, so we have space. Like, and so, like, you know, we'll go hang out again, like, you know, like 6 feet apart. We won't let anybody in the house. Still really vigilant with washing your hands, but you know, some people are starting to act a little more cavalier than others. But just on my street, I've got 20 houses on. I live in a huge development where there's probably 1,000 houses. On my street of 20, I know of 4 houses that have had it early on.
Anyone who's died? Any fatalities?
A couple of people's parents. I know 3 people whose either father or, you know, or stepfather, you know, passed away from it. But we know a couple, you know, who. You know, they're pretty they're religious Jews. In Long Island specifically, there was a bunch of nursery schools that all the people got it. You know, and so they live 4 houses down. Now he's jogging around. So I don't know if that's telling people that, hey, if you catch it, you're going to recover from it and it's not that big of a deal. But we've heard of friends now going to people's houses and things like that. We're still staying vigilant. But yeah, it's almost as if there is a, the longer it goes on, people almost get desensitized to it around here. And there seems to be, more of a relaxed kind of, response to it.
I hear you, man. Have you gone into the city?
Fuck no.
I talked to some people. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go into the city. I'm like, are you fucking out of your mind?
No, and there's from everybody I've talked to, there's not even it's not even a horizon in which you would go to the city, even after this thing like subsides. Is that everybody's
That's interesting. Okay, now that's interesting. What's in terms of people who are near New York, who New York is part of their life? Okay. What is their view on how what the future of Manhattan and New York City is going to be?
Okay, so I live in Roslyn, New York. It's I'm a 30-minute train ride from the city. The draws of the city, besides for seeing your friends who still live there, would be the culture and restaurants. So from that perspective, all the restaurant distributors are now delivering to Long Island. So my wife and I cook. We're
from the city.
Oh yeah. Well, no. So they weren't located in the city, but all of their.
What worker? How long does it take? How do you keep the food warm? That's crazy.
Oh no, I'm not talking about delivery. I'm talking about the guys who supply, meats, fish, all that kind of stuff. There's a company called Baldor, which used to supply all the restaurants there. Gaining access to that kind of stuff, we're now getting that here. My wife was a chef, so she's making unbelievable meals. But from the perspective of going to the city to gain access to great food, it's out of sight, out of mind. But no, everybody here is super fearful of it. They're not even thinking about that. We've all just kind of readjusted how we go about life. Nobody's eating out. People are doing. There's not a ton of delivery here. We're doing takeout, but takeout's like going to a scene from that Matt Damon movie. Everybody comes out in hazmat suits. They give it to you. You've got a 15-minute time slot to pick it up. So it's just kind of readjusted the way that everybody goes about business. People are cooking at home. Supermarkets are empty. So that's been all right to go to, but no one can get, toilet paper or any of the disinfectants.
Seriously?
Like that.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. How's it going in LA?
Real quick, your account was what again that you tapped in from? It's like steak and.
No. So smoke ribs, not crack.
Got it.
So yeah, if it's a positive message for the kids.
Smoke ribs, crack, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah. My man, I'm glad that you popped in, gave us a little information from the East Coast, gave us a little more perspective, because we obviously are out here hearing about the devastation in New York, but it's not real. It's not in front of our face. So, thank you very much for giving us some perspective on that.
Yeah. And everybody, legit stay inside, until we get herd immunity. Or a vaccine, but I will tell you this, a lot of people in my office were exposed to it and had it. I was amongst them for 2 weeks. They had, from the time we closed, a lot of people got it, and I washed my hands vigilantly. It works. So, keep your distance, wash your hands. If you didn't get lucky enough to come in contact and survive it, just keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully this too shall pass.
My man, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Matt.
Say hi to all my cousins-in-law.
I will. I'll say hi to CJ for you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Take care, man. Good to see you.
Take care. All right. Let's see. Leslie. Leslie, who's so much closer to the ownership and management of the Sacramento Kings than she lets on. Let's see if Leslie wants to hop on in. Give it a minute. You guys do crack me up in the comments. You crack me up, seriously. Olivia, don't worry. It was an old friend of mine, guys. He was not bullying me. He was not bullying me. It was a good faith conversation, just an exchange of information. Let's see what else. All right, guys. I think that's it for tonight. Hope everyone enjoy. I mean, fucking love chatting with Cisco. Dude, Leslie, that just means that you're not dressed the way you want to be dressed. All right, wait. Who? Mike Faggotstrom. Okay. Olivia, yes. Bullying is, or we're super up on bullying. Does Lord Collins want to go live? Mike, what? I don't quite know how to pronounce your last name. If you want to go live, pop on in. I would talk to you because you've been very active in the comments tonight. Leslie, do you know this fucking guy? I mean, he's cool. He was good in comments. Leslie, I don't care what your fucking roots look like. Jump on it. I'm requesting you. I don't give a shit. Sorry, Leslie. You don't have a choice now.
This is horrible. This is a
Dude,
horrible,
I don't
horrible.
give a shit about your roots. Who cares about your roots? Your roots are fine.
You're gonna lose a lot of followers right now.
No, we're already up about 20% in followers since that you've made your voice a little more known, Leslie.
Great. Look at, I also have like a mosquito bite in my eye. See, there go your followers. I have a cat in my lap.
You're a total mess. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm a fucking mess right now.
You're hanging on by a thread.
I'm hanging on by a thread.
Leslie, what are you doing? What are you doing stuff in the NBA right now? Are you doing stuff with the Sacramento Kings? Are you fucking armed robbery? You selling drugs? What's going on?
All of it. So I think we met through Mike, right? McGinnis, virtually.
So, yeah. We've actually never met. Just so everyone knows, I've never met Leslie before in my life. We are digital friends. I've never actually seen you. This is the first time I've actually seen you. So that's amazing. Anyways, what are you doing? What's going
on? Nothing. Dying. Waiting to get out of here. Hating. You're gonna lose more followers. Hating Newsom. Hating this prison. Hating that they're shutting down all of our beaches tomorrow. I'm not thrilled. But speaking of Sacramento, Sacramento's opening up tomorrow.
Listen, if they fucking still have the beaches shut down in a few weeks, I'm gonna hammer them as hard as anyone. But for the moment, like whatever. Let's just give it.
Yeah, I don't live by the beach, so I don't really care. Actually.
You don't give a shit. With your roots, you don't want to be at the beach. I think we can all agree on that.
Look at this.
If I had those roots, I would not go to the beach. I wouldn't go outside. No, for real. What's going on?
Anybody else want to jump in?
No,
nobody else wants to jump in.
Give us a little bit about our boy Vivek Ranadive. Let's get a little bit.
That was an excellent pronunciation.
Yeah, I'm good at what I do. Anyways, tell us a little bit about the Sacramento Kings, your experiences in the National Basketball Association, successful professional woman. Want to hear everything about what you're up to.
Oh God, you're drunk. So I started with Vivek when he was a minority owner with the Golden State Warriors. When I started working for Vivek, he was part owner with Frank Gruber and Joe Lacob. And that was at the time.
Peter Gruber.
What? Gruber.
Peter Gruber, not Frank Gruber.
Peter, correct. Not Frank. Sorry. Yeah, Peter. And if you recall, they were horrible. When they were going to retire Chris Mullin's jersey, they booed Joe Lacob off the stage. They literally hated Joe Lacob, and Vivek had to get up on stage and like quiet everybody down and tell them to stop booing Joe so they could continue with Chris Mullin's jersey retirement with the Warriors. I don't know if you remember that. And then Vivek came on and drafted Harrison Barnes and Monte Ellis and basically the entire bench that they use to kind of come up and kill people in like the third and fourth quarter. And then
Fuck them up real good. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, this is my limited NBA knowledge, people, so don't kill me. But and then we were at the office one day, and we worked with Roger Craig. Roger Craig worked for Vivek Ranadive too. He's his VP of business development at Tibco Software. Tibco is the software company that Vivek founded.
Just so to tell everybody what we're talking about right now. Vivek Ranadive is a billionaire. He's the owner of the Sacramento Kings. Leslie works with Vivek. Roger Craig was an all-pro running back for the San Francisco 49ers in the 80s.
6-time all-pro.
One of the best
First
players,
thousand.
one of the best NFL players of the 80s. And apparently he is one of the top executives for one of Vivek Ranadive's companies is not Jenny Craig's brother, but Roger Craig.
Right, but Roger Craig, yeah, a Nebraska running back, the first thousand hit rushing and receiving yards in the same year. Anyway, so Roger Craig walks into our office one day and goes, "Hey, you know, I just got a call from Kevin Johnson, and you guys recall Kevin Johnson? He was a Phoenix Sun, and then the then mayor of the Phoenix Suns of Sacramento, and he called, and you know, this was all in the news, and said, hey, I don't know if you read the news, but Steve Ballmer bought the Kings last night from why am I drawing a blank right now? I've tried to put their name out of my Belinsky, you know this.
Who is this? Give me a little context.
They own the Kings. They sold them. They tried to sell them to Steve Ballmer in the middle of the night. They have vodka.
On.
They have vodka. They have there's 4 of them. The Maloofs. That's right.
Yeah.
So the Maloofs. Remember they sold them in the middle of the night, and everybody woke up and said the Kings have been sold to Steve Ballmer, and he was moving them to Seattle, and they're going to be the next Supersonics, and they were going to redo KeyBank Arena, and Kevin Johnson had called Roger and said, do you know anybody that would want to buy the Kings and try and fight and keep them in Sacramento? And Vivek was phenomenal, and he just kind of looked at us and said, you know, should we buy the Kings? And so we just started. Like, we went to New York, we went to the board of directors in the NBA. David Stern was instrumental in the keeping the Kings in Sacramento. Like, I miss him. I miss him. He's a true hero. Anyway, so, and there was another guy, Chris Hansen.
Okay.
He was another investor that was in with Steve Ballmer. I think he's actually trying to buy another basketball team right now and another soccer team. And then Vivek ended up getting the Kings and tearing down, revitalizing downtown Sacramento, and built Golden One Arena. And it's just, it's a phenomenal arena. If you guys ever get a chance to go there, it's like the most technologically advanced arena in the world. It knows when you're coming. It knows when you're driving there. It gives you an alert and tells you where to park. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, so
what's your official role, and what do you do right now?
So I don't work for Vivek anymore, but he's one of my best friends. I'm now the VP of Global Comms for Juniper Networks, which is a networking company that basically built the internet.
Wow. It's a big project.
It's a a long time ago, but yeah. So there you go.
I love it. Wow. Now we can be, so next, when the NBA opens back up, I can come up to Sacramento. We can hang out. We can go do some elitist stuff that normal people don't get to do.
Correct. That's actually how I met Mike McGinnis, because when I worked at the Warriors, he somehow found my name as the PR person and started hitting me up for free tickets to the Warriors. So that's actually how I met Mike. He was doing the same thing. He kept trying to, he bothered me enough until we invited him up and came to a game.
Me and Mike we do kind of relate to each other and our soul animals in terms of really bothering people for what we want, like over and over again. God
I've
bless.
noticed.
Yeah. All right. So Leslie, we're going to end on a high note. We went an hour and 40 minutes tonight. I'm glad that you hopped on in. I'm glad that I now know what you are as a person. We have transcended our digital divide, even though we still haven't met in person.
That's true. That's true. I'm happy, and I was very against it. But in times of COVID, you show your true self without makeup or eyelashes or roots or toilet paper, as Noelle said. So
your roots are listen, I wouldn't brag about them, but they're not nearly as disastrous as you may think.
faces, though. Put somebody else on.
Dude, you look great. Don't worry, we're out.
Yeah.
Okay. Leslie, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that was a lot of fun. Leslie's great. Leslie's great, a badass female executive in the formerly in the sports world, connected kind of to the sports world a little bit. See if we have any interesting comments. I think that's it tonight, guys. All right, love y'all. This was a lot of fun. Talk to you later.